We have seen the prices of funeral increases by as much as 25% since the lockdown. Prior to lockdown, families paid about 8,000 rands for a funeral. This included the coffin, burial or cremation fees and the transportation of the body. But now they are paying 10,000 rands or more. Joining us now for further information is Director Unathi Saul. Unathi, thank you so much for your time this afternoon and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Unathi, and thank you for the warm welcome.
It's fantastic to speak to another Unathi, I must say. But obviously, this is a very disturbing story because, as you know, we are in the middle of a pandemic and people are suffering during this time. Talk to me about how the price hike has influenced the funeral service or affected, rather, the funeral service industry during this time particularly.
Unathi, we are facing a very difficult challenge as funeral directors because the prices have gone up and they've gone up to families. And it's not ideal for us to present those prices, but there's just not a thing that we can do. For instance, prices have gone up for PPEs, equipment, and also we've had to turn also our panel vans so that they can comply according to COVID-19. So the prices have gone up indeed.
Now, let's talk specifically about, the people, the families that are affected. We know a lot of people have lost their livelihoods, because of the pandemic, because of the lockdowns. And some of them have probably not been able to pay those much needed funeral policies. How have you, seen this problem as a reality, particularly in your field? And were you able to, meet families halfway?
Yes, definitely. There are a lot of challenges we faced with meeting these halfway, but we did try. For instance, at Abaveleli Funeral Directors, we have lowered our waiting period from 6 months to 3 months so that people now cannot no longer wait for 6 months so that we can work for them. But instead now, we can do a dignified funeral if anything happens at 3 months.
I know, incredible. So, as a funeral association, speak to me about how the various lockdowns have affected the businesses for funeral parlors specifically. I mean, we've seen the country being on total lockdown, level 5. Obviously, you were one of those industries that could operate, but now we are on level 2. So how have the different lockdowns affected businesses in your field?
They have affected businesses so much because now suddenly even for us to get coffins is sometimes a challenge because all the suppliers are always out of coffins due to the pandemic. And now we've had to repatriate through provinces a lot of the family's loved ones. And now petrol prices have gone up, which is it's not ideal to us. PPEs, equipment is expensive, and government is not assisting the industry at all.
Have you tried to engage with government, and what has been their response?
We've tried through our different associations in the funeral industry, but we've had no luck.
And Unathi, as we are now looking at, the size of funerals that people can hold, it still remains, even though some, regulations have been relaxed, that number still remains, very minimal for most families who are not really used to holding, just 50 people at funerals, etc. How innovative have your industry had to be, to accommodate, these changes? And how are people, coping and adapting to some of these changes? Maybe if you can take us to pre-COVID-19, to what some of the changes that you guys are currently experiencing on the field now that we are still on level 2, but we still have those restrictions in terms of numbers of people that can attend those funerals.
Unathi, let's say before lockdown, we all knew that At your loved one's funeral, you could have as many people there to support the family. But now the situation we are facing, only 50 people attend a funeral. And another thing, while those 50 people are there, they cannot be there for many hours. And as the Black community, because I work a lot in the Eastern Cape and Western Cape as Abaveleli, this is a struggle because our people are used to having night vigils and having long hours of service. Now the services has been cut only to 1 hour, and families are not pleased with that at all because they want to bury their loved ones in dignity. Now this affects the industry and us as funeral directors a lot, because now the families won't be happy with our services. But at the end of the day, this time is a pandemic. There's nothing we can do. But either we've had to equip families with the knowledge, we've had to supply families with the necessary PPE equipment. We've also went to the point whereby at first we as the directors never offered tents and so forth. Now we do everything in-house so that the family is stress-free totally.
Just some of the advice as we close this interview, some advice that you can give families who are struggling, who really cannot afford to pay some of the exorbitant fees that we are seeing. Some of them can't even pay, even though you are giving them a longer period in which to pay back that money. What are some of the tips that you've seen where people can actually, where they are struggling, can bury their loved ones? Unfortunately, it is a reality during this time. We are still seeing many people die from COVID-19.
In the funeral industry, or the funeral insurance rather, I should put it, people should always make sure that they take a cover that has, for instance, services such as repatriation, because we all know it's so expensive to transport your loved one from province to province. And since now people have lost jobs, this is gonna go heavy on their pockets. So having an insurer that has those services within your policy, it will make things easy for you. And also, people should also make sure that the waiting period is not quite lengthy, because this will determine whether they will work for you or they won't work for you. Other than that, people should also make sure that the premiums are not too pricey. For instance, we've got covers as little as 100 Rand per month that cover both you and the rest of your family members.
But a lot of people don't actually know about that, Unathi, in terms of, what are some of the policies that you should take out. I mean, if a policy is 100 Rands, for instance, and somebody can afford that, but it won't necessarily cover for everything, so what makes the prices different?
The prices different, they are different, made by the type, I think, of funeral you get. But as I was saying, with our policy that is from 100 Rand monthly, you get all the necessities that someone needs to bury their loved one, which is, it will cover all the mortuary requirements, all the coffin, and even repatriation. So you should choose your policies well and want to find out. They should give you brochures before you choose a good policy for you and your loved ones.
Yeah, I think that repatriation point is very important because, as you say, a lot of people don't actually know that they would have to then move their loved ones from one province to another. Unathi, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Unathi. Thank you for having me.
All right, Unathi Saul there from the Funeral Association.